Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Figma for EDU monthly workshop. This is called Building Components in Figma Design. The reason that we're going to be highlighting building components is that as workflows begin to change, tools are really well suited to provide context. So if you're building with AI or if you are just learning AI, how you construct your designs in Figma, how you articulate your design decisions, how you build your intent and work on this canvas can help influence and help you build out your designs in real life. So components are going to be one aspect of that. So you might be asking yourself, what is a component? As you look at apps, as you look at websites, as you look at the construction of any kind of digital display, right, you're going to start to see how content is chunked out. So if I take a look at this mobile layout here, you'll see that there's a card, there's some infographics, there's other bits. Some pieces are meant for you to read, consume, and understand, and some parts are meant for you to interact with, where you click and you navigate. So as you start to break down the site, as you start to break down those various elements, these are components that make that up. So it's not just even just that chunk of information, but it also is going to relate directly to coded components. So the way that this is developed. And we often are thinking about recreating, or what we want to do is we don't want to have to recreate the same thing again and again and again. So what components do is they allow you to build out something so that way it can be reused. And oftentimes you're going to be working on a team, so you need to communicate how those components work for others. As I look through this design here, I can start to see how this is constructed. This right here would be a panel or a chart component. And then there might be other little bits too that are created as components that are constructing it. So as I move down here, even if you think of these icons, you're not essentially recreating that icon on every frame of your design, and you don't have a unique icon on every frame of your design, because then you have to manually go and update each individual one. So a component is going to be a reusable element. And as Figma has got more and more in depth, the ways that you use components has gotten more structured and more detailed. So we're going to cover a lot of those details today. At the forefront, building a component is easy. I'm going to show you what a simple component is, and then we'll go into a more realistic example. At the beginning, if I was to, let's say I'm going to come down here and I was to just simply draw a star. So I'm going to draw a star. So I came down to the toolbar, I drew a star. I'm going to apply a fill. So I applied a red fill. So this star, you could see it has certain bounds associated with it. I have certain properties associated with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it inside, I'm going to make it into a component. And when it makes it into a component, it's basically going to kind of make a container for that is a frame. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go create component. You should see the shortcut here. I've highlighted it. It's Option Command K or Control Alt K if you're on Windows. So when I right click and I create a component, you're going to notice that it is now encapsulated in a purple border. You're going to see this little icon that shows up. Let me make my interface just a tad bit bigger for those of you in the back that would like to see a little bit more clearly. Let me reduce the size of that side window. But this is effectively a component. Now, a couple things happen. So when I made this, I'm going to rename this. I'm just going to call this star component. And if I look over here on the left-hand side into this assets panel, right, I'm going to see various libraries that are associated with this file. If I click created in this file, I'm going to see that star component there. So when you create this component, you're essentially making this reusable element. It is now indexed in this file as something that can be reused. So I can either make a copy of this here on the canvas, so I can hit copy and paste. So Command C, Command V, whoops, did not mean to paste that there. Okay, I can copy and paste this object on the canvas, or from this assets panel on the left, I could drag in the star component. So this right here is the main component, and these are the instances. So when I go back to my file, so I'm in the assets panel. In the assets panel, we can see the components that are currently in this file. But if I go back into the file and I look underneath my layers, I can see that this star, it has the main component icon. That means it's driving these other ones, these instances. These are effective copies of that first one. So if I make any change to this main one, you're going to see those changes live reflected in those other components. So as I make changes and adjustments, even if I was to change the fill color, you will see it then propagate to these other instances. Now, these other instances can be pasted across many other frames. So when I make this update, it'll then propagate to those. However, you can also override these as well, which we'll be talking about in a moment. I'll show you quickly here what I mean by an override. So this one, I can rotate it, or if I command or control click, right, I can select the object inside of there. And when I click fill, I can apply an override. So this is now losing that blue association. However, it's still keeping some of those properties intact as I'm updating these. So you can see that components are really powerful in what you can do and what you can create. So let's come down here to build a component that is more indicative of what you may be building in Figma. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to make a card component. A card component is something that you may see exist and persist across websites or apps, and it's going to contain maybe like an image, a visual, and then a certain degree of hierarchy of text. So this right here is like a line of text. This URL is a line of text. This is like, what is that? A paragraph of text. And then we also have these other little bits as well. These can also be kind of built out as components. So this right here is a frame. It's an auto layout frame. And what that is going to do, and I'm going to show you this 2 times. So this frame, when I drop things in here, right, these elements are effectively going to stack upon one another. So I gave a workshop on auto layout a few weeks ago. If you want, you can go back and look for that on YouTube. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of construct this. I'll show you how to make that frame. So I'm going to press the F key. I'm going to draw a frame. This is essentially the basic container that you're working with in Figma. I'm going to call this my card component. And what I can do is if I press Shift A, right, it's going to be the same as going over here to the properties panel with that frame selected and enabling auto layout. So when I toggle auto layout, it's going to have a flow, and this flow is going to be all the elements that are going to exist in this card component. And right now I have it set to vertical. So there's nothing inside of this auto layout. So when I begin to drag things in, it's going to wrap around them because that's the default behavior. It's going to hug the contents that sits inside. So I'm going to drag this in, and you'll notice that that frame that I created that had the auto layout is now hugging this image, or this image placeholder that I have here. And I'll show you how to make that image placeholder in just a moment as well. So I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to drag in this text. I'm going to drag in the title. I'm going to drag in this paragraph. And then I have some other things here. So I have these other frames. So this is a frame. It has, like a little graphic. It has some additional text, has another little button, and I could drop all that in there as well. I'm going to keep it simple for now. So let's just keep it to this bit of items. So right now, this is using auto layout to keep everything stacked. And with auto layout, you have certain properties. So we have a gap property over here. That's the spacing in between those elements. I'm going to set it at a value of 12. Here we have these padding values. So we can adjust the padding on the left and the right, the top and the bottom. I'm going to set those to 12 as well. Actually, I can make them a little bit more. Let's set those as 24. Little shortcut, if you want to apply them all those values at the same time, if you hit the command key and click, it'll allow you to change all the padding values at the exact same time. So I command click and I press in there and I can change them all at the same time. I'm going to set them all to 24. And what I want you to do is see the relationship here of what's happening on stage on the canvas and what's happening over here in the padding. So if you're new to Figma, as you make changes, to objects here on the canvas or here in the properties panel, I want you to see the relationship of those things. So anything that you have selected on the canvas, you will then see properties for, whether it be dimensions. So like, the width or the height of this image, the appearance, the font properties, etc. So we have the majority of this card currently constructed. And so what we plan on doing is I'm going to make this into a component. Now, I've showed you, you can right click, create component. We also have that shortcut key, which is Option Command K or Control Alt K if you're on Windows, or I can select it and come over here to the properties panel and I could see frame and I could see create component. Everybody has their own personal preference on their entry point for this. Me personally, I'm a big right click person and create component, but over here we can create that. And then once again, you'll see this here, you'll see the card component laid out. And oh, so someone said the design panel has label above the items. I'll show you to have the labels, right? If you click over here where the zoom percentage of your canvas is, and you come down, there's an action for property labels. So when I click property labels, now it hides them all. So that's for more advanced users. And then when I click here and I enable property labels, right, I will now see all of those property labels. I generally prefer having them on, especially when I'm doing demos, so folks can kind of see exactly what it is I'm talking about. But sure, click over here, choose property labels, guarantee it'll make your life a lot easier. So as I'm looking at this card component, this is now that main instance or the main component. I can go to the assets panel, and under the assets panel, I will be able to find my card component and I could drag that in from there. So if I'm somewhere in my document, I could even search for it. So I could say card component. I think I have a couple named that. So I can drag that in and there is now an instance of it. I'm going to go back to the file. And once again, I just want to highlight the difference between, let me just move this up out of my way. These are just other little bits that I might use to make the component. I just want to highlight the difference between the main component and the instance. This is the definition. So if I make changes in the definition, you will see it reflected in the instance, and we can have many instances. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to select it. I'm going to press Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. That's going to make another copy of it on top of itself, and we can easily move those over. So is there a way to organize components in repos? Yes, there's going to be ways to organize components. One of the ways that you can easily start to control, like let's say a file structure for them. So let's say right here, what I can do is I can put in like the word demo and put in a /, and that will now have it in a subfolder. So when I come over here, you'll see that there's a demo subfolder and then there's card component. And you'll actually see other items as well, the way that they're structured in the file using sections. We could talk about that later, or using this / annotation. What you can do is you can then see that structure for hierarchy of labeling them and having them in there. Right now, we're talking about building a component. So this component right now, we've made inside of an auto layout frame. You can use auto layout to stack things vertically, horizontally, as well as in a grid. Because this is stacked vertically, and because that frame is set to hug resizing. So when I select this, you'll see hug resizing. As I make changes to the text, you will see it grow to expand. So let's say if I wanted to create some new placeholder text here, I'm actually going to use one of our AI features to replace content. So what that means is I'm going to come down over here. I'm going to type in replace content. So the actions panel in Figma, if you've joined some of our previous workshops, is Command K, Control K on Windows. When I enable that, I can type in a command. So I can say replace content, and I'm going to replace the content in here, and I'll say change the content to reflect a face, or let's say a review for a coffee shop, right? So I can replace that content. So this, once again, is an instance, right? And this instance, I've effectively replaced the content here. So it's not affecting the main component. So another thing that I could do here is this is a placeholder image, and I can override that image. What this is a shape with a fill. So when I select it, I can come over here, and then I can either upload from computer, or I can have AI make an image for me. For this purpose, let's see, I think I have something on my computer. Let me open up my documents folder. And I'm going to show you, even if you just want to drag something in, how to move that over. So I'm going to go to my documents. I'm going to go to, let's see, I have some coffee photos here, and I'm going to drag in a coffee photo. So you see it's really large, right? It's like occupying a lot of space. And so this might not be the ideal way that you bring it in, but I'm going to show you some different ways to bring in this image. And what we're concerned about here is the fill of that image over here on the right. So what I could do is I can cut that fill with Command K, right? And it'll leave a little border there. I can remove that. And then I can paste the fill with Command V right there into that spot. So there's other ways to do this as well. So if I was to select that image, I can go over to the fill. I can upload from the computer. And here I can go to my documents, and I can find the same coffee photo. You might not be able to see this little window pop up here because it's just my documents folder, but I'll be able to, let's see, I have my assets, and I have my coffee picks, and I have another coffee pick. And so it'll just place that photo right there. So whenever you see one of these placeholder images, you just go over to the fill, and then you can upload from the computer, or you can even make an image. I can make an image from a prompt, and I could say a latte on a table in a cafe, right? So once again, these are all instances, and they're based off of this main component. And if I want to make any changes, I can then make changes. And we're going to talk about that in the next section as well. So that's going to continue making that, but I'll just show you here what I could do is I could change this title in the main component. Let's say I make the title a little bit bigger, right? You could see that reflected in those instances as well. Let's say if I want to take that text that we have there and I want to make that blue for like a hyperlink, you can then see it reflected. And now there's going to be other properties. Yeah, that's a pretty good photo. There's going to be other properties that we can still have control over. So this next section is inserting instances and applying overrides. We've already been doing a bit of that. And so I'm going to actually move these over here. And so what we're doing is we're kind of stress testing our designs, our components. So I can go ahead and I can make additional edits. I'll show you one thing that I wanted to highlight here. If I wish, I could change the padding in between the elements known as the gap. I can adjust the padding here as well. So you'll see what sort of overrides you can do. Let's say I want to override, and for instance, I want to round the corners of this card. I can select it, go over to the properties panel, and apply a corner radius and increase the corner radius on that. I can command click, select that image that's in there, and then also apply a corner radius there. So once again, all of these are being serviced by this main component here. Oh, so the placeholder, how to get the placeholder? All you need to do is draw a shape. So I'm going to press the R key and I'm going to draw a shape. What you're going to do is you're going to come down to the fill When you click on the fill, you're going to notice these options up here. The fourth option is the image option. When you do, it's going to apply that image placeholder, and then you can kind of leave that as is. So this is going to be an ideal way that you can kind of indicate to folks who are going to be using your components, let's say you're using this on a team, to be able to apply those. Why did every title instances get bigger at the same time? They all got bigger at the same time because I went to the main component here and I changed that. So if I reduce or increase it, you're going to see it affect all of its direct instances. So once again, this is the main component. It's kind of like the definition, and then these are then instances. So I can also change other properties of this. Let's say that fill, I can, make that gray, and it's not necessarily, or this color looks terrible. I'll make it that kind of blue. There we go. So these are overrides that are being applied that are changing from its main one. So what happens if you detach the main component? You can't detach the main component. It actually, there's no option to. You might have to manually destroy it. Is there a way to apply the change from the child component? Yes, absolutely. That was a fantastic question and something I was just about to show. So the question was, is there a way to apply a change from the child component to the main component? When I right click on one of these, and what they are is these are called instances. When I right click, as long as you are working in the same file as the original main component. So what I mean by that is components are made and can be published as a library and shared out and used in other files. Okay. But if you're currently working in the file that has the component definition, you will see an option where you can push changes to the main component. So let's say if you're still in this phase where you're testing out the main component, you're changing things and you realize, hey, I want to push those changes to the main one. If I pushed these changes to the main component, it'll then waterfall back down to those other ones. And anything that didn't have an override, so anything that didn't have an override has now accepted it in that way. So let me see, we don't need that here. Oops, just close that. And so what I mean by that is yeah, like any changes that you have within the same file, you can always right click, go to main component and push changes to the main component. Likewise, if you don't know where the main component is, as you're working, you're like, oh, I really want to go see and that main component, where is it? I can right click on it and then go to main component and then just go to main component. It'll take me there. And then down here, if I need to go back to where I was, it'll say return to instance. And then now I'm back at the instance. So that's going to be pretty helpful. You can also find that option over here in the top right where you have the instance selected. And you can say, oh, it's in this file. Click on it. It'll take you right to that main component. And then I can return back to that instance. So another thing that I would like to show you all is another way that you can bring instances in from the assets panel. So let's say I want to replace this card with this star that I have here, right, that I made earlier. I can drag this in, and if I hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows, it'll replace it. So check this out. So if I had these cards, like lined up, I'm going to push this one to the back by pressing the left bracket key. So if I had these cards lined up, basically I can replace them with something else. So if I have another instance in here, so you actually have similar cards, and if I hold down the Option key, it'll just replace it right there on the canvas if I hold down the Option key from that assets panel. So that's a fun little shortcut that's going to save you some time. Okay, so we've covered building a component. A component is a reusable element in your file. We've constructed a very simple component. We've constructed a card component that has like image media. Once again, if I need to, let's say I want this to go back to that placeholder image, I can go over here. We're working a lot with image fills. I can actually just, let's see, I can make it a color and then go back to the image fill. How do I get rid of the image? Let me see. You know what? I'm just going to remove it and then add a fill and then add the, wow, it really wants to keep that image. Let's see. I'm going to put in like another one, add a fill image. There we go. Now I have it. Be mindful of the opacity here because oftentimes when you create additional fill layers, you can stack fill layers that you kind of like remove and manage them. So I just added another one, made it a blank image to be that placeholder. And then maybe I want to, undo that to be, white. And then if I go once again to my instances, you can see my instances have matched up and that looks great. All right. So is this all applicable to designs made in Figma sites? Yeah. So as you're making components, Figma sites uses components in the exact same way. So Figma sites actually makes really good use of components, which is why it's kind of like good to understand their construction and how they use. If you're building a site and you don't want to just make that same graphic 20, 30 times, you make it as a single component. You can place it in all your pages. You change it once, it updates across your pages. So fantastic question. All right, so we've built a simple component and we've learned how instances work. We've applied instance overrides, and now we're going to start talking about component properties. So component properties are both going to support those building components as well as those using components. What component properties are going to do is, we were manually editing text, we were manually like, adjusting the image. What component properties are going to allow you to do is to create either alternate versions of your component or standardize how text gets swapped out, or how, we were doing a little bit of instance swapping here where we were dragging stuff and replacing it. I have this, I hold on the option key and I'm performing what is like an instance swap. I'm taking one instance and I'm replacing it with another or with another component. So I'm going to walk you through a button that I made, and then we're going to walk through how to compose it. So this right here is a button definition. This button definition has two different states for that button. Typically, when buttons are built as components, there might be many more different states associated with it, hover state, press state, active state, and they might have different sizes. So this is currently an instance of this. I actually scaled it up using the scale tool just for, for y'all to see it at home a little bit clearer. And you'll notice that when I select this instance, right, over here on the right, you're going to see these different properties. So I have like a highlighted property, right? I have this left icon allows me to change the icon that shows up there on the left. And I could see that it wasn't constructed properly because the color changed. I'll show you how to fix that color. And then we also have a label here. So I could change that from displays to button. And you'll notice that that then changes the size of the button as well. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about creating these properties so that then when you build out a component, when an instance is brought in, it becomes easier to edit by someone who may be using your component. So once again, if I wanted to, with this instance, change that icon, I could easily go right here. See, there we go. And then just kind of like swap that icon for a different icon. And once again, it's pulling from these icons that I have here. And these icons are all nested within a section. So somebody was asking about organizing previously. A section will be another way to group and order your components as such that they will be viewed in a subfolder when you go to see them in the file. So you could either manually do that with the name and that /, or by placing them inside of a section. To add a section, it's down over here, right? Section, Shift S. So when you place a main component into a section, you can kind of swap that out. All right, so we're going to build out some component properties with a component that's very similar to the one that we've already constructed. So yeah, so I saw the question, the changing the icon and it didn't swap back. Basically, it's just you have to make sure that all of these instances have the same construction. So basically, the chevron that I chose right here, it didn't have the correct naming structure. If I look at all the other icons, they're all called icon and they have a fill applied. So that chevron was the broken one. If I rename that to icon, right, what's going to happen is when I swap that, or at least it should, when I swap it to that chevron now, oh, see, yeah, it's not updated or propagated properly. Let me make sure. I'm going to make that a union object. Ah, there it is. Okay. And then I'm going to say icon. I think I fixed the chevron now. So that was my bad. I just overlooked something. So I'll show you how to fix it. So when I build these icons, and actually my next workshop in June is going to be covering building icons. So we will talk all about union operations and getting these things normalized for swapping. But there we go. We should now be able to go to the chevron and it'll stay white. There it is. Now it's white. So now you'll notice I can go to these other ones and they'll all stay white. The short answer is when you are making that icon, having a consistency across those frames. So if I was to make like a simple, like a little like 1, 2, right? If I made that icon, then I made like a 1, 2, 3, 4. In order for me to get these both consistent, what I will do is in here, I will choose the children and I'll show you the fastest way to do that. So I'm going to select this frame, I'm going to press enter. It chooses the children. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use a union operation. It's basically going to take everything and treat it as one object. And so you'll see that union. So here I select this frame, I press enter, and I create a union. And there we got another union. So if I rename those both to the same name, so in this case, icon and icon, see that naming structure, right? They're both unions inside of there. Now I'm going to say, what is this, 2? I'm going to say icon slash 2 and icon slash 4. If I try to swap those out, I mean, they're not the same size. Notice these are all the same size. That makes it a lot easier. But if I was to make these both as components and I have this instance and I change, that gray to like red, when I swap right here to that other component, it'll stay red, right? So if I'm going from 4 to 2, and that has to do with the naming structure and the fact that that next element in is a union object. It's kind of like a folder. It's bringing those all together. They have the same name, so that same property will be applied. So when I go from 2 to 4 to 2, that'll work correctly. All right, next up, we're going to go to this component here. So we have show what we're going to do. Oh, I'm sorry. If I have two buttons with different colors, thanks. All right, next up, we're going to go to the content. And this is another card component that I built up. All right, so here with this content card, what we're going to do is this is already built out as a component. Notice it has no properties. This is the main component. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have this photo change on and off, right? So we're going to swap it. So whether it's going to show or not. So this is we're going to give it a property. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this whole component. I'm going to come over here, choose properties. We're going to set this as a Boolean property, right? A Boolean property is just true or false, right? So name, I'm going to call this show photo. And the value, like I said, is either true or false. So that Boolean property, true or false. We're going to leave it as true. And so show photo is true. And you're going to see that it's not currently used within the component. So what we could do is we can go to, this image layer, right? And we can set its property right there. So we're going to apply a variable or a property, and that's going to allow us to show it or hide it. because there might be an instance in this component where you want to see the image and an instance where you don't. So I'm going to click that, and then we'll see the property that we created called show photo. And currently it is set to true. So show photo is true. And what I'm going to do is just create a copy of this. So we have an instance, and you'll see on this instance, the show photo can be set to on or off. And that's going to give us the ability to control that property. So for this instance, we could say, maybe we want a card that doesn't show the photo. We can now turn that off. So I'll show you that. We'll show you that for another thing right here. But next, let's do some text. So like, let's say here, this text right now, the content is bitesofboston.com. And you can see we can apply that component property or a variable. And what that's going to do is allow us to create a new property. So that property is going to be a URL, right? So the name is going to be URL because it's going to be the link. I'll just call it link to make it easier. And then the default value is bitesofboston.com. I'm going to create that property. And now you'll see that we have that link property associated with that text. And once again, now when we click on that instance, we will see that link show up right there. So here we can update this. I could say figma.com, and then it's going to update right there. So this way I don't have to go into the instance and like look for that text layer and change it. I can just select the instance and make those changes here. You notice too, it said variables. So maybe in another workshop, we'll talk a little bit more about variables, but that variable can be then set and changed in like prototyping, or be like a global value that you want to change across the document. All right, let's do that again with this title. So same thing here. I'm going to select this title, best lobster roll in town, click that, and we're going to create a new property. And we're going to call this, title. We're going to leave that there. We're going to create that property. And so now when I go to the instance, there it is. So we have link and title. And so you'll see these populate as we're kind of putting them in. We'll have another one for our body text. Let's create that property, add a new one, and we'll just say body text and create that property. And so now when I click this, all of those different properties are just going to show up, and it can be edited right from here. Once again, I could show or hide the role, and I could say best lobster roll in town. I could change that to something else. Figma for EDU is free. Yo, there you go. And then you'll see that it populates, and then that's how the card is essentially set up. So you can have other ways of easily kind of controlling this card. I'm going to set up a instance swap next. So right here, we actually have another component inside of this component. If I draw it out, oh, this is actually not a component. Let's make it a component, right? So we're going to call this our user. And so when I paste it here, you'll see it show up. And let's say I want another version of this, right? So I'm going to grab that follow text, and I'm going to make that the same width. Here we go. And I'm going to make this into a component. So we'll call this, we'll call this bottom, card bottom user. And this can also be card bottom follow. And so what we could do here is we can create what is known as a instance swap property. I'll show you another way to make that. We can click up here on the card component definition itself. We'll see everything: show photo, link, title, body text. So we could just add in another one. It's going to ask us what type do we want. We're going to say instance swap. And so the value name, we'll just say, card bottom. And the value, we can pick an instance. We have a few of them here. So you'll see the card bottom, we have these two. Let's set up this first one, the user one, right? And then there's this option for preferred instances. So you notice there's a lot of other stuff in this file. So basically we could say, hey, we want you to use this one or this one, right? So it's always going to make those as like defaults. And so now when I create this property, we can come over here and, oh, I still need to assign it. So we'll notice this little exclamation point. Oh, it's not used within the component. So I can go to the instance that I want to apply as the instance swap. And what I can do, actually, you can see right here, I could easily like go and apply that there. You'll notice over here, once again, that like little property icon, apply instance swap property. When I do that, we're going to say the card bottom property. And now, once again, when we go to content, we'll see that all of these are set up. And so now when we're configuring this component, I could say, hey, we want the user or do we want the follow? We want the user or the follow. Now it's showing the preferred ones that I made here, but you could also just look for other instances in the file and attempt to populate it. And then the other thing too, let's say we want to have whether or not this even, shows up, we can maybe set like a property, like a visual. So like, let's say we don't want the body text to show up, for instance. We can click here, go to appearance. We can click right there, add property. We can add a new one and we can call this show body text. The value is true. And so now we have the show body text. So however you're looking to set this up. So show body text is also a toggle and that will now show up and off. And you may be thinking, I know the person who was asking about organization, you can come over here and reorganize your properties so then that way they're grouped together in the way that you feel is best suited. So when you're consuming it, now I have show photo and show body and then all the text ones. So that's going to be component properties. And now we're going to get into a new component property called slots. A slot is basically like an area inside that you can put in whatever you want. So right now you might see that the instance itself right here, this instance might be limiting in that like I would say, okay, this is great, but maybe I want to drop in like a tag cloud. Maybe I want to drop in some additional images and we don't know exactly how many images that may want to be. So as the author of this component, we want to build an area that anyone can add whatever they want to add. So that's going to take us to component slots. So this is a relatively new feature. We announced it last fall. It recently got some updates as well. And what I'm going to show you is like, I'll show you an example of this in play really quick. So this is like another card component. This is another component that is like for tags. And what I could do is I could just start dragging them in here. If you've come to some of my other workshops, oops, that's actually the main component. What we want is the instance. There we go, the instance. So I'll show you on an instance that doesn't have slots. So this instance has no slots. I can't drop anything in here at all, right? I can't add anything new. I'm limited to what's already there. However, this has a slot. And what I can do is I can begin to drop things in and I could duplicate them and it will grow and expand to fill that space. So a slot is just kind of like, this is an area where you can add in custom stuff, right? You can build it up component in a more customized way, right? And let's say you don't know exactly how many of a particular item is going to be added in there within the slot can have that auto layout behavior that will allow that to grow. So slot is a property. So it's a slot property. It's not replacing properties. It's just a more flexible one. So previously we had the swap component property, or swap instance. Swap instance doesn't really, you want to swap instance with objects that are the exact same like width and height. However, with slots, it's like the slot is going to grow and contract. So it does provide a lot more flexibility. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a slot. This is the main component. To make a slot, it has to be not nested, but at the main level, like, direct child of this frame. This is a new frame. I just call this frame for a slot. You just press F, draw it in, and I'm going to drag it into that auto layout frame. So here I can determine the size or height. I can also make it an auto layout frame. So right now this is a fixed, well, it's filling the width of the card, but its height is like predetermined. It's a fixed height. I'm going to set the height. I'm going to make this auto layout, and I'm going to set this height to hug contents. Even though there's nothing yet inside, what we're going to do is we're going to add stuff. So here, what I could do is I could just make this slot like available. I'm actually going to move it down one for like the tag cloud, right? And if I change this height, you're going to see it's going to lose that hug contents behavior. So we want to make sure that that's enabled. One other thing that I'm going to do here is currently the auto layout behavior is going to stack elements to the left from the left going right. And here, this is going to allow them to wrap. So I showed you with that tag cloud, as soon as we couldn't fit another element in there, so it moved to the next line, I'm going to apply an auto layout wrap. So this is now set up. And what we're going to do, you'll notice over here, there's this option, convert to slot. The shortcut key for that is Shift Command S or Shift Control S on Windows. When I convert this into a slot, it says property, right, frame for a slot. And so now that's set up. And here you can see this property that's been created, and I can like name it. So I could call this, tag cloud. And so there's our item. When I click here for properties, you can give it an additional description. And there's a new option. This actually dropped last week, set fill as default. So that means that if something gets dropped in, it's automatically going to fill. For this example, I don't want to turn that on, but I'll show you how that can be used as we're starting to wrap up here. So what I'm going to do is I have this little button component, right? I have some instances, and we're going to drop them in and see how they behave. So once again, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hold down the option key and drag this over to create a copy. And you'll notice that on the instance, you'll see it pink. It'll have a little plus button, right? And it allows you to add instances. When I click plus, it'll actually look for instances in the file. Once again, in the definition of the slot, we can add preferred instances. So I can come in here and I could say, hey, that hashtag button, that's my preferred instance. So I could click plus, I can add in a hashtag, and I could actually add in some more. And you see them populating there. And then even here, they have their own text. So I can change that. So hashtag latte, love these slots. And you'll see that this whole area, it's going to grow the more that I have. It'll contract as I remove them. And it just gives me a lot more flexibility. But I can literally drop anything that I want into this slot for this behavior. So the slot is essentially a new component property that gives you that freedom. Another way that you may use this, let me see here. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take these, I'm going to change the behavior for these to here. I'm going to go to the slot, and instead of horizontal, I'm going to make them go vertical, right? So now they're all listed vertical. So instead of these being tags, let's say they're like buttons in like a menu. Another thing that I can do with the definition of the slot is to have that new behavior where set fill is the default. And what that means is it'll actually change for those instances to automatically fill that space as there's tagged vertically, right? So, well, I guess there you go. I think this is already set to hug, but should apply set to full as a default. Let's make something. So here, I'm going to put in some text in a frame, and let's have that frame be blue, purple. There we go. I'm going to make this auto layout. Actually, I'm going to remove, I'll just say fixed width. And we should see here that should work, right? So I just grab that. I'm going to throw it in the slot. There you go. Now it's automatically filled despite that size. So this was a behavior that a lot of people are requesting, that if you have like a vertical stack, you want things to fill, it'll automatically adjust and fill to match that slot. So you can see how this is going to be useful in building those out. So as we wrap up, I want to highlight dev mode. The reason that you're building components in the first place is because it's going to be developed and made. I'm going to come down here with that object selected. I'm going to go into dev mode. And in dev mode, there's going to be a ton of context that's going to be used for developing these into real code. Here, you'll notice I actually have an MCP server set up, so it'll actually create an example prompt if I wanted to use this with an agentic tool such as Codex or Claude, so I can copy the prompt if this is something that I want to build into a component. One thing that I usually recommend when you have these instances, you can come over here, explore component behavior. This will allow you to test a component. So here you can fill in all of those component properties and see how it behaves. So if you're stress testing it or testing it with like another language, you can kind of easily come in here and begin to explore the behavior of that component with different visuals and playing around with those as well. It'll also provide like a lot of the code that a developer can use in building this out. It'll also help you inspect it to better understand the padding and spacing and the various properties that you've been working on while building out your components. And then publishing libraries. Once you begin to start to have everything, you can actually publish your assets. So if you go to the assets panel, you click over here, you can publish this as a library. You can add to file other libraries that may have already existed. And so that'll give you a big queue in. You can always go here to add more libraries, and there are a number of UI kits. So if you're new and you want to explore how others are using some libraries, you can add simple design system, and you can either open that file and see how components are constructed there. This is a design system that is built by Figma that is pretty, run of the mill, just a lot of basic things. And when you have that added to your file, you can like search through and add those components. So if you are just trying something out for the first time, you can see and learn from existing components that have been built by other designers. And once again, this is the first step in building out design systems. Design systems and these libraries can be used by Figma Make to help construct the makes that you're building. So if you're looking to explore working with AI, but you want to use your visual designs and systems, using these component libraries, building them up, and working in this way is really just going to support those workflows. So Figma is going to be a really good tool for providing context when you're building out things with AI, and it allows you to impart your own intent in your own design style. All right, so we're close to time. I would say about 5 more minutes for questions. Let's take a look and see some questions that we have here. So can you move components from one file to another? It's better if the file where you're building the components, that you publish that out and then you make it available for another file. So if I was to, come here and let me see this file, like I want to publish it. So I can go to my assets, I can come in here, I can click publish. Here I can even choose what components I want to publish. So you'll see I got like button and all this other stuff. So I have 41. This is quite a lot, but I think it should be pretty quick. I'm just going to hit publish. It's going to publish. And what you want to do is you want to publish that, and then in the other file, you'll then want to pull those in. So that's going to be a better workflow. Now, if you're talking about main components, yes, you can copy and paste a main component from one file to another. Oftentimes, you can paste instances, and an instance, as long as it's within your own team, you can find that instance back to that first file. But notice I just published my library updates. And if I go here to a new file, so I'm going to go to a new design file, I can go to assets. And then here in the assets, I can go to the libraries, and I can find the library that I had just worked on. What was it called? It was components. So right here, building components in Figma, I can add it. And then here's all of those components. And these are now coming from that other file that I just worked on because this file is in the same team. So on the EDU Pro plan, you can do this. And then that way you'll be able to edit and update and work with them. And if I right click, I can always go to the main component. It'll open up the original file and take you exactly where you want to go. So usually on larger teams, they might lock the library file and folks can kind of then request the changes and such. Let's go back here. Can you move or duplicate the main component to a different file? Yeah, you can copy it to a different file, but like I said, that's the one that you more than likely want to move. You want to make sure that there are no dependencies in the existing file, such as variables. So the short answer is yes, but it's usually like not the best practice. Simple components, you can easily copy paste them as main components. Can you make an instance a new component? You can detach an instance. I know that this is something I actually didn't quite cover. If you want to lose the relationship, if you want to fully edit this on your own, you can right click and you can detach an instance. What that's going to do, it's going to lose the relationship between the original component. You could do whatever you want with this. You can even right click and make this into its own component. So if you want to create like a new iteration, you could detach, make a new component and kind of build off of that. But when you detach, you are losing the relationship to that original component, and it will no longer accept the updates as you would normally. So detach component is usually like a 4-letter word in some organizations where they don't want you to detach the component because they can't, if they push an update, then you have to manually update that, and they might have a difficult time finding those. Let's head back over here and I'll answer one more question. How can I change the color of the chevron from black to white? I have 2 buttons with different colors. So all you need to do to change the color of the chevron. So if it is a button that's a different color, just select it in that instance and then just change its fill color. So I'll just show you what that is really quick. So let's say, let's say here, this button, I'm making an override for whatever reason, I've overridden it to like a much lighter color. I need to change these icons. The easiest way is to go over here to selection colors. It'll look for any colors in the selection you currently have, which is this button. And then I can go ahead and I can update that and I can just change it there. So you can always override it. So instances will always accept those overrides. I'll take it to one more. Let's see. Write and wrap is on, but my tags aren't wrapping. How can I fix this? So if you have the tags, so right here, I'm going to press Shift A. This is an auto layout frame. This frame needs to have some kind of width associated with it. So it can't be set to hug. So this needs to be width right here. It needs to be a fixed width. So this element is in here. As soon as I hit duplicate, I'm going to say go left to right, and I'm going to hit duplicate, right? And now you'll see it's going off the edge. So selecting that and going to flow. Now, the other thing that you need to be mindful of is that height needs to be set to hug. So if the height wasn't set to hug, it was a fixed height, then it's gonna kind of go down there, right? What you need is you need this frame itself to also be set to like hug contents. So the frame. So it's usually with an auto layout frame, it's like the outside frame is reacting to the inside elements, or the inside elements are reacting to the outside elements. So for the height, you want the height to hug the inside elements. So then that way, as you're duplicating, it will continue to grow. So that's going to be your answers. Make sure that the height is set to hug values. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much for joining. Really appreciate you for being here. Fantastic questions. This will be shared out, let's say, in the next week or two as a video. Feel free to ask questions when you see it on YouTube. You can ask questions there as well. Joanna, do you have anything else you wanted to share before we head out for the day?
No, thank you all so much for your amazing questions. If we did not get to them, be sure to message Miggy on Twitter or let us know. We're happy to track those down and answer them. Thank you all so much for being here. We're so excited that you all are excited about Figma's tools. We can't wait for you all to share this with your communities.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great weekend.